Theory U blends systems thinking, innovation, and leading change from the viewpoint of an evolving human consciousness. Drawing on the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, tradition of action research and learning by doing, Theory U has evolved over 2 decades of experimentation and refinement by a vibrant global community of practitioners. At its core, Theory U comprises 3 main elements. 1. A framework for seeing the blind spot of leadership and systems change. 2. A method for implementing awareness-based change, process, principles, practices. And 3. A new narrative for evolutionary societal change, updating our mental and institutional operating systems, OS, in all of society's sectors. Part 1 explores the framework and main ideas of Theory U, chapters 1 through 4. It illuminates the most important blind spot in leadership today, the interior condition from which we operate. Part 2 describes the process, principles, and practices of Theory U, chapter 5. It showcases practical methods and tools for changemakers. The focus is on building the collective capacity to shift the inner place from which we operate. Part 3 introduces a new narrative for profound evolutionary change in society, chapters 6 and 7. What does it take to redesign societies in ways that address the pressing challenges of our time? What does it take to apply the power of mindfulness to the transformation of the collective system? This part of the book outlines a framework for updating the operating systems of our educational institutions, our economies, and our democracies. This framework applies the core concepts of Theory U to the transformation of capitalism. Theory U leadership. Cultivate the social field. At its core, Theory U makes a distinction between the different ways that action and attention come into the world. I pay attention this way, therefore it emerges that way. Or, as the late CEO of Hanover Insurance, Bill O'Brien, put it, the success of an intervention depends on the interior condition of the intervener. Theory U draws our attention to the blind spot in leadership today, the interior conditions, the sources from which we operate both individually and collectively. Since I grew up on a farm, I like to compare our interior condition to a field. Each field has 2 dimensions, one that is visible, what's growing above the surface, and one that is invisible, what's beneath the surface, that is, the quality of the soil. The same distinction applies to social fields. We can see what people do, the practical outcomes that they accomplish in the visible realm, but we rarely pay attention to the deeper root condition, the source and interior condition from which we operate. Theory U draws our attention to that blind spot, to the invisible source dimension of the social field, to the quality of relationships that we have to each other, to the system, and to ourselves. Theory U identifies 4 different ways, or sources from, that action and attention come into the world. They arise from a quality of awareness that is 1. Habitual, 2. Ego-systemic, 3. Empathic relational, or 4. Generative ecosystemic. The essence of leadership is to become aware of our blind spot, these interior conditions or sources, and then to shift the inner place from which we operate, as required by the situations we face. This means that our job as leaders and changemakers is to cultivate the soil of the social field. The social field consists of the relationships among individuals, groups, and systems that give rise to patterns of thinking, conversing, and organizing, which in turn produce practical results. Social fields are like social systems, but they are seen from within, from their interior condition. To shift from a social system perspective to a social field perspective, we have to become aware of our blind spot, the source level from which our attention and our actions originate. That source level fundamentally affects the quality of leading, learning, and listening. The problem with leadership today is that most people think of it as being made up of individuals with one person at the top. But if we see leadership as the capacity of a system to co-sense and co-shape the future, then we realize that all leadership is distributed. It needs to include everyone.